Hi friends, it's Deanna Williston with Our Blooming Catholic Life. And I would love to do a teaching with you on Veritatis Splendor, but it is a chunky monkey. So I thought we could, over some Fridays, I know I have something different planned for next Friday, so not all Fridays in a row, but maybe we can look at Veritatis Splendor from some different resources and angles. It's an important document. It comes from the 6th of August, 1993, Feast of the Transfiguration. It is a papal encyclical. It is by John Paul II. It's been said it's wildly important. And some people are just so intimidated by an encyclical to start with, just the word, let alone looking at it in book form. I looked at trying to print it off my printer, and that would be completely insane waste of ink and paper. I need to buy it in the book form. So hopefully I can get my hands on it. What is it? It is an encyclical on Catholic moral doctrine. So in Spiritus Domini, August 1st, 1987, the Pope was already saying that he was going to write this. It took some time, right? That one was issued on the second centenary of the death of St. Alphonsus Liguori, patron of confessors and moralists. Hey. Ugh. I feel like, could be wrong. Let's see here. I found this book when I was on my retreat, 12 Steps to Holiness and Salvation. Cute little book, right? I'll have to do a book report on this on Monday. From the works of St. Alphonsus Liguori. Right there. And it's a great little book. Why it says it's 12 steps. It's one for every month of the year. It's adapted from the German of Reverend Paul. I don't know how to say that. It's Leick. And it's by Reverend Cornelius J. Warren, CSSR. Published by Tan Books, as usual. It does have a nihil obstat from Patrick J. Seppel, Censor Laborum, an imprimatur from William Cardinal O'Connor, Archbishop of Boston, and it does have the permission of his superior to write this. 2016 is the date. So it starts out faith, hope, love of God, love of neighbor, poverty and detachment, chastity, obedience, meekness and humility, mortification, recollection, prayer, self-denial, and love of the cross. So we'll go over that, but it's a 12-step system on the moral life. So I found that, and I was super excited. It was in a bin at the guest room from when my mom had been staying there. There was a bin full of prayer books, and it was in there. I'm sorry, Mom. You snooze, you lose. I don't even know where it came from, how you got it, but it hasn't been important to you any times I've tried to give you things, so it's mine now. Just saying, it's mine now. Totally kidding. All she has to do is ask it. I will give it to her. What was the purpose of this encyclical then? Oh, it was kind of important that apostolic letter, Spiritus Domini, was issued on the second centenary of the death of St. Alphonsus Liguori, patron of confessors and moralists. So I'm trying to say just out of the sun. After lengthy preparation, the encyclical is being published only now because the Pope thought it best to be preceded by the Catechism of the Catholic Church. This little monkey right here. Okay, so that's actually the second edition. Wait, let me try again. That could be the first edition. Not 100% sure. I don't know. Anyway, he wanted the catechism to come out first and then the encyclical. That's why there was so much time in between. And that's quite a chunky monkey there to start with. Okay. The encyclical addresses. Oh, so when you were studying the encyclical, you may want to have that as a reference book. So he had to publish the reference book first. Totally makes sense, right? Okay, what else? The encyclical was addressed specifically to the bishops. So like the Catechism of the Council of Trent, I believe it's this one here, is actually addressed to priests. Catechisms over different times were addressed to different audiences. So this time this encyclical was addressed specifically to the bishop. Okay, why? Because they bear a responsibility for the teaching of the people in their diocese. That is a mandate that Jesus gave to the apostles. The bishops are the successors of the apostles. Okay, what are the reasons? Let's see, the church continued to develop her rich tradition of moral reflection on many different spheres of life. There's a lot of new challenges that were coming about. Again, why they wanted to make this catechism, there was just situations that they never even thought of when they did the Council of Trent. Just things that they would never have even occurred to them to have a book about, right? So I'm okay with those kind of updates. That makes sense, right? Let's see here. It says, alongside praiseworthy attempts at the renewal of moral theology in accordance with the wishes of the Second Vatican Councils, doubts and various objections with regard to the Church's moral teaching have arisen even within Catholic moral theology. It has become increasingly evident that this is no longer a matter of limited and occasional dissent from certain specific moral norms, but rather a general and systemic calling into question of traditional moral doctrines as such on the basis of certain anthropological and ethical concepts. Okay, so what in specific? Natural law, universality, and permanent validity of its precepts. That's not going to help you, right? That sounds like gobbledygook. Let's see what it says next. Called into question whether the magisterium is competent to intervene in matters of morality and to teach authoritatively the binding requirements of God's commandments. Moreover, it was maintained that one can love God and neighbor without being obliged always and everywhere in all situations by the commandments taught by the Church. Doubt is raised by the intrinsic and unbreakable bond between faith and morality to the extent of theorizing the possibility of forms of pluralism that are in fact incompatible with ecclesial communion. As these ideas became more widespread, no one can fail to see that they have extremely important repercussions for the Church, for the life of the faithful, and the human coexistence itself. The pastoral and social problems which have emerged on every level make it possible to speak of a genuine crisis. For this reason, the papal magisterium deemed it necessary to clarify points of doctrine crucial for the successful resolution of this crisis. Still clear as mud there, right, friends? Times has changed, and sometimes the meanings we ascribe to words have changed, and so things needed updated. That's what I've got. The heart of the problem. Let's see. Dissent. Oh, yeah, there's always people dissenting from teachings. That's too hard. We've all said that. Don't feel like I'm pointing fingers at other people. We've all said it at one time or another. This teaching is hard, right? Let's see. It was said it was the influence of currents of thought which ultimately separate the exercise of human freedom from its essential and constitutive relationship with truth. This is still a little wonky, but they're saying freedom an absolute, a source of values apart from any dependence on truth. This has already all come up in my one whole class on moral theology so far. We've been talking about anthropology and ethics and absolutes. And what does freedom mean? Okay. Catholic theology has come to renewed appreciation of the best of the classical doctrinal tradition regarding the values of personal responsibility and the role of reasons and conscience in establishing moral obligation. Okay, I thought this article was genius when I read it 2 weeks ago. I thought it was going to summarize it and make everything good for us, and that is about as clear as mud. So I have something else over here. Let me grab it quick. We're going to look at this in upcoming weeks as a book review. This was a book, it is for my moral theology class. And why he picked this book is apparently a very trusted, primer in moral theology. Because I don't know, I just feel like I'm missing the meanings of basic words and that was all gobbledygook. So let's see if this has an interesting little introduction at least to us. Let's just, The first edition was in 2008, but this is a 2016 edition. I'm just going to read to us the preface to the first edition. See what it says. Some ideas never quite leave us. Like old friends, they hang around for a long time, sometimes unnoticed, but exerting their influence all the same. This book grew out of an idea that never quite left me. Many years ago, longer than I care to remember, I was asked to consider graduate studies in Christian ethics. The prospect did not appeal to me because my one exposure to the academic study of ethics had been fairly miserable. Yeah, right? Our one little paper we tried to read was pretty sad. In my junior year at college, I enrolled in a course on philosophical ethics. My interest decreased with each passing class. It was as if we were tourists on a cross-country trip to survey the landscape of philosophical ethics. On our way, we visited shrines dedicated to deontology, teleology, Unitarian, I can't say these words, utilitarianism, consequentialism, natural law, virtual theory, examining them all as interesting specimens of philosophical reflection, but not encouraged to settle down with any of them. We were tourists, casual observers who would jot down a few notes, make a few comments, and then move on. The longer the trip continued, and a 15-week semester is quite a long time when you're bored, the more disengaged I became. My disillusionment had nothing to do with the expertise of our guide. The professor knew all the important details about each of the sites we visited along the way, but he gave us no reason to care about any of them, and certainly no reason to plan a return trip. The lessons learned from traveling can be sobering. Just as there are some countries we vow never to visit again, I knew one trip deep into the country of philosophical ethics was enough for me. After such an unpromising beginning, why did I accept the invitation to pursue graduate study in Christian ethics? Because not too many years after my initial exposure to the field of ethics, I did a little exploring on my own. I read Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics in the section of Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologica that focuses on morality, and I discovered for both of them the moral life revolves around the question of happiness. In a way, it was so simple. Aristotle and Aquinas shaped their accounts of the moral life around the claim that everyone wants to be happy. It is our most fundamental, indelible desire. The trajectory of our lives can be read as an endless pursuit of whatever we think will satisfy us, content us, and fulfill us. The choices and decisions we make, the careers we pursue, the relationships we develop, the ambitions we espouse all reveal what we believe will bring us happiness and satisfaction. It's very interesting because in our Lectio Divina for this week, we've been talking about, St. Francis said, when I was in sin, like basically to do good, the will of God was bitterness to me. And now it's sweet. And we even see that in Matthew 16, verses 20 to 23, where, Peter's like, no, you can't suffer, my beloved Lord and teacher and master and friend. You cannot. Don't speak of this kind of suffering. It's impossible, because suffering was bitter to him. He thought that would not bring happiness. He certainly changes his mind down the road, doesn't he? Okay, I'm going to leave it there. So perhaps that's what the moral life is about then. Perhaps it is about what we were talking about in our Lectio Divina, about making what is good, true, and beautiful be that sweetness to us. And sometimes it is suffering. And sometimes it is sacrifice. But it's beautiful because it's out of love for others. Interesting. So I'm excited to dive into this topic some more. Of course, I'm going to be taking a graduate level class on it. You're not, but I really never discussed it before, so I think it's interesting. We're going to be using a variety of resources. We had talked about, even before I knew it was a part of moral theology, looking at some of virtues and growing in them this year, and so I think that's going to be an interesting theme for us this year. So I look forward to Fridays kind of looking into that and focusing on that, hopefully. God willing, if that is his will, that's what we're going to continue on. Okay, friends, may God bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine unto you and be gracious unto you. And may the good Lord bless you. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.